So good evening, Chair and members of the Housing Commission. I'll be giving tonight's staff presentation. Just as a reminder, this is a special meeting. This was requested by the Housing Commission when we were doing our annual work plan back in March. Talked about how one of the agendized items later this year was going to be talking about updating our below market rate inclusionary housing requirement and fee related to this. Both of these things are set in the code as part of the housing mitigation manual. It's a document city council passed that kind of governs our below market rate kind of production of housing and how we collect fees. And it was requested that before we get into that meeting where we update what we have, let's first have a study session to understand what we currently have and how it's kind of currently works. The purpose of tonight's meeting is basically going to be purely educational. We're not making any decisions tonight, but we will open it for discussion later so that commissioners can have their chance to ask any clarifying questions they want, and also just kind of discuss amongst each other what you think, what kind of changes maybe you think you want to see, right, amongst each other. So without further ado, let's get started. The Housing Mitigation Manual, also known as the Below Market Rate Housing Mitigation Program Procedural Manual, was adopted by City Council back in 1992. It's part of the general plan. Way back then. The goal of this manual is to generate affordable housing through market rate development. This is the mitigation idea, right? And it does this by two ways. The first is called the inclusionary housing requirement. This is the industry term we use for that, which is whenever there's a market rate development, this is privately owned, of course, by a for-profit, entity. We require them to set aside a certain percentage of their units to be made affordable for the below market rate program, right? So it's inclusionary, included within the private development. The other thing we do is that we have established the below market rate affordable housing fund through the manual, and it is funded essentially entirely through fees collected on building permits. We're going to get into the structure of how those fees are calculated and collected as part of this presentation. So first, let's start with, once this loads, the inclusionary housing requirement. Like I said, it requires developers to set aside a percentage of their for-profit development to either be sold or rented to the income qualifying households at designated affordability levels. So we're going to take it back and just talk about what does it mean to be, low income, and what level does that mean? There are currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 recognized income levels within the low income housing kind of sort of menu, right? At the very top, you have moderate income folks. They make between 100% of area median income, so the middle income for Santa Clara County, up to 120%. So they're close to the middle, slightly higher. Within our inclusionary housing requirement, we require ownership development. So that means anytime there's single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, things that are meant to be individually sold with a deed, right? 10% of those are required to be made available to moderate income households. Next income bracket in income households. This is from 80% to 100%. So very close to the middle again, but slightly below area median income. That's also part of our ownership inclusionary requirement. 10% of any ownership development has to have their properties available to median income households. So in together combined, that means 20% of any ownership development is made to the affordable housing program. And you might be asking, what if that percentage is only one unit, right? So like, let's say there's like 6 houses in a development. We go to median, right? We go to median instead of moderate. And once we get to, right, then there's one median, one moderate, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now let's go to low income. Low income is from 50% to 80% area median income. And we require 6% of all rental developments to be made available to low income. So anytime there's an apartment complex, anytime there's something for rent, that's typically part of the requirement. Also, we have our very low income inclusionary requirement, which goes in between 30 to 50% area median income. We require 9% of all rental projects to be made available to very low income. So combined, that makes for 15% of the total development, right? We do not currently have a requirement for extremely low income, which is 15 to 30%, or acutely low. This is a very, very new one that was just established this year by the state, which is anyone below 50% area median income. Another way to kind of visualize what these kind of mean is essentially you got your middle class, right? Working class. The very low is generally speaking where like the poverty line hits. And then extremely low and acutely low, you have people that are either unstably housed or essentially homeless, right? Okay, so below market rate affordable housing fund, this is the fee that the city collects to fund our kind of affordable housing activities. Our planners are responsible for collecting this upon issuance of a building permit. And so people cannot get their final inspections without paying this fee, right? And some eligible affordable uses of our below market rate housing fund are number one, acquisition. So that means buying land strictly for affordable construction of affordable housing. We actually had this come to the Housing Commission right this March. Preservation. This means if you have a property that already is affordable, but you want to extend the life of the affordability, you can give them like an additional, grant or loan. Rehabilitation, that's when older units, they start falling into disrepair. So maybe you say as an exchange for repairing these units, you agree to restrict them into the program. Affordable operation subsidies. So sometimes affordable housing projects, they have a gap. Their operations, maybe not necessarily at year one, but maybe year 3 or year 4. So sometimes you can see people using these kind of funds for an operation subsidy to kind of fill that gap. And then BMR program administration, this is kind of portfolio management. We recently did this for the Rise Housing contract. And typically that contract is funded out of the BMR fund, although this year, and for the next 3 years, it'll be funded out of the general fund. Fair housing, this is about enforcement and prevention of housing discrimination, right? Housing discrimination based on things like race, ethnicity, sex, religion, religious identity, and identity, sexual representation, things like that. Then finally, other low income housing activities. This one is kind of intentionally vague, but the idea being that like anything that can basically help prevent homelessness, even though we don't typically use this fund for that, we can. It's also enumerated in one of the eligible uses. So to set kind of the context for this update of our inclusionary requirements, it's important to remember that right now we are in the midst of our kind of 6th cycle housing element that includes the regional housing needs allocation, or the RHNA, which is something that HCD assigns to each city and county for each to provide their own fair share of affordable housing at various income levels, right? To meet equitable, commensurate affordable housing, to meet population and economic growth. This was part of our housing element. And if you remember, we previously had a study session about trying to find, more strategies for how we can make more low and very low housing, right? And so kind of updating this kind of inclusionary requirement will be kind of like one of the goals will be to help us kind of further our ability to meet this state mandated requirement, really, right? To meet our very low and low income housing needs. And then, so speaking of the housing element, this action that we're undertaking, it will be addressing 2 of our enumerated housing element strategies that is listed in the housing element as a required study and implementation action from now in between like 2027 to 2029-ish. The first one being HE 2.3.3, we're residential housing mitigation program, which requires us to regularly analyze and update the inclusionary housing program. And the other one being HE 2.3.9 is when we analyze and update the BMR fees. So both 2 and 1. All right, now let's move on to the fee structure and how that works. It's going to get a little bit mathematical. So there are 2 components for fee collection into the BMR AHF fund. There's one that fractional fee, one that we call the commercial linkage fee. So the fractional fee is collected on residential building permits. Your townhomes, your single-family homes or apartment building, right? It's calculated to represent the remaining fraction of a unit provision requirement. So going back to like what I was talking about before, what if the BMR requirement for 15% of a rental unit project, for example, becomes 2.4, right? They can build 2 units, but what represents the 0.4 is the fractional fee, right? So we require them to build 2, we collect a fee on the 0.4. The next component is called the commercial linkage. This is collected from commercial building permits. And the idea behind this is it's calculated to ensure that job wage growth in the city to commensurate affordable housing supply. The idea being when you have the same amount of housing stock, right, in the market, if you increase the number of jobs, right, no matter what, that's an increase in demand, which means rents have to go up by a certain amount. And if you have high income wages coming in, right, you have higher wage income people competing with the same people for the same apartments, meaning there's a larger jump, right, in the amount of rent that potentially could be charged. So it's going to be different depending on the type of commercial growth that you get, right?
We might ask you a question at this time, or do you want to save it until the end, or?
Let's save it till the end, because I might answer it in the next slides.
Okay.
First, we have let's go into how we calculate the fractional fee. We're going to run through an example, right? So as I said before, the city's inclusionary housing requirement often results in a non-whole number, right? It's very rare that it's exactly 4 or exactly, a certain number. So in the example of a rental project that's got 22 units total, they would be required to provide 1.98 very low income, which is the 9%, right, of the project, and then 1.32 low income units, right? If the fractional portion of a requirement is greater than 0.5, we ask the developer to round up, right? So for the 1.98, we would say, please just provide us 2 very low income units. If the fractional portion is less than 0.5, then we ask them to pay the fractional fee. The formula to calculate that fee is as follows. So we're going to kind of break that down. You have your gross floor area of your proposed project, right? Multiply that by the fee amount per square foot of development type. So there's a different, this is like a variable, right? So it's different for whether it's single family, multifamily, duplex, triplex, or whatever. All of that multiplied by each other, divided by the below market rate inclusion requirement of either 15 or 20%, as we previously mentioned, and then multiplying that by the remaining fraction. And that's how you are going to calculate your remaining fraction. So therefore, for this kind of project, we would require 2 very low income units because we're rounding up, 1 low income unit because we're rounding down that one. And then they would have to pay that much money, $145,163.63, the BMR AHF fund to represent that 0.32. That would be the full BMR kind of requirement. Next, let's talk about the commercial linkage fee. Again, it's also based on the square footage and use type, right? And as I previously mentioned, lower wage use type have a lower fee because you're bringing in more jobs, yes, but they're generally lower wage jobs. So the demand impact is not going to be as high as if you were to bring in like an office, which are going to have people who make a lot of money. Okay? So we have currently 5 categories of different use types in our commercial linkage fee. One is office and research, which is the highest, right? And it goes down to hotel, self-storage, warehouse, and the lowest is commercial retail.
I would make a comment.
Sure.
Not a question.
All right.
When you look at the exhibit B, the highest one actually is warehouse. It's
sorry.
$49.29.
Yeah.
And the research, which you think would be the highest, is actually 10 or more dollars less than that at $35.48. So those are both high. So I just wanted to, because that was such a surprise to me that I wanted to just mention it because I'm sure it's probably surprising to everyone because I don't understand then what a warehouse is. But you don't have to answer that. Just I'm going to point that out so everybody's aware that that was a little startling when I read it.
So let's talk about the goals of this update. So number one, we really want to be current with state law development, current with state law, Meaning like, because the state of California, they produce so many of these housing laws every single year. We want to make sure that our program is consistent with state law. We're not missing out on anything. And the other is that we want to be current with the current development environment, right? We want to accurately reflect what kind of development we're seeing, so make sure that we're capturing that. Right, so we're not missing out on any kind of, use case that isn't being currently covered in our category. The other thing we want to do is we want to be compatible with regional best practices, right? It's been some time since we've updated like some of these, and what we don't want is to be missing out on something that makes Cupertino sort of like incongruent, right, with development outside anywhere else that possibly would entice people to do their housing development somewhere else, right? We want to be equitable for affordable housing, right? We want this requirement to be accurately capturing enough funds or enough requirement that we can be producing enough affordable housing to be adequately mitigating the effects of the market rate development. But mostly we want to be legally defensible, whatever we want to do, right? We want this to hold up under scrutiny. We want it to be financially feasible, meaning we don't want it to impact development. Right, you could technically be like, we only want 100% affordable housing, but that would realistically solve all development, right? And then finally, we want to be able to earn RENET goals. Whatever we suggest, we want this to somehow be a positive effect for our city's ability to meet those low income and very low income housing goals. So let's talk about the next steps, right? So we actually did release the RFP. We're gonna bring in a consultant to study this, and sometime in the fall, we haven't settled on a date yet. They will be coming back, right? And they will be basically presenting the options to the Housing Commission that we will be looking for your recommendation on. Your feedback also, now will kind of play into perhaps like it can give us an idea, right, of some of your priorities as well. But you'll be making that recommendation in the fall. And of course, everything has to be brought back to the city council for final ratification. We anticipate that to be in 2027, early 2027. So I think at this point, we want to open it up to commission to kind of ask any clarifying questions and also just kind of start the discussion because this is a study session.
So I have questions on this study, information that you mentioned, a few questions. The income levels that you shared, right? The
Yes.
table that shows the different income levels. So that's based on the county or the city?
So based on the county,
The county level.
yeah, each county is kind of given its own sort of area median income and then income brackets.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are the percentages, how are they determined? Like the requirement, like 9% of rental and 6% of rental, how were they determined?
So that was determined based on kind of inclusionary studies of the past, where they were trying to figure out what is kind of the financially feasible way to include, to make an inclusionary requirement essentially, right? And the prevailing notion for the longest time has been somewhere between 15 to 20% of each kind of market rate development. And so that's when each city kind of like adopting their own. It varies ever so slightly from city to city. And the city of Cupertino decided to do 15% for rentals and then 20% for ownership. Yeah.
So this is like developed by the city itself.
This was developed by the city itself. Yeah.
And this is not based on that 1992 thing.
No.
More of a current, okay.
No, yeah. This would be, I think the latest time this was updated, it was like 2015-ish. Yeah.
Okay.
The entire manual was updated, it's just the fees and stuff.
Fees and stuff. But the last time this manual was updated was in 2020, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
So does the requirement come from us, like the 10%?
Yeah, the city decides on its own inclusionary housing requirement.
Mhm.
And so what you'll see is each of the different, so like Sunnyvale actually recently did a study for their Nexus study. And they like looked at all the different cities' requirements, and they also looked at like financially what's the maximum they could feasibly start charging before, it starts impeding development. And then they kind of like make a recommendation, like through their housing commission, on like what they want to do with their inclusionary housing requirement and how they want it to change.
How then can we measure how effective this below market rate manual has been since its inception? And the reason I ask is I only have the data for, of course, the last few years, and we haven't made much progress at all in using the below market rate manual mitigation theories. So I don't know if between 1992 and 2019, it was better
Mhm.
or not. And I don't know if you have any information on that.
Part of the consultant study will be kind of looking at like the trending patterns of like development to see like where, like if there was something that was like entirely impeding development. I mean,
Yeah.
it's generally pretty obvious, right? We wouldn't be getting any applications at all. But also like
Yeah.
seeing like where we get more or less,
Yeah.
like that's kind of like included in sort of like their economic analysis. So that's not something I readily have, but that would be something that the kind of consultant bases some of their study on.
Okay, I would like them to look at this then because two things. One is that we do know what homes have been built recently, like the Ventana and the one on Main Street that was built for homelessness and a few other low income folks.
Yeah.
And then we've got the one on Westport. That was 19 homes and this was 48. And compared to that, we have had an update to how many homes from our base of below market rate homes are going to be lost in the next 3 years. That's 93. That's 93. And that's assuming that's the only houses that have been built. And these are the only houses that are losing. But it's just a tremendous disparity.
Yeah.
So I don't know if somehow before that we were building some more houses and it just isn't captured right now because that's just devastating to be losing 93 homes in the next 3 years. And then after that, there's another 7 years and you're going to lose the next 20. But the thing is that in this next coming 3 years, and we aren't building, as far as I know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your answer, but I was going to just finalize with the only two that I'm aware of, the affordable, the Mary Avenue, it was approved and funded, but it's in litigation or something. So still sticks not on the ground, right? We don't have, and then there's the teacher housing one.
Yeah.
And they have been sort of semi-approved, but they still have to go through a whole long process. So anything other than the rise and stuff, we just don't have much funding.
Well, I should point out though, so those ones are the 100% affordable projects that have been brought to you guys because this is the commission that deals with the 100% affordable. The inclusionary housing requirement is going to be a requirement that affects market rate developments and like puts in a requirement for them to provide us with affordable housing. So we do actually currently have pipeline market rate developments.
How many houses do we expect from that? Do you know? Is there a number on that?
There's a number. I don't remember how many of the 8 in total on top of my head, but their names.
Because aren't they all the 10% ownership kind? They're not.
That's correct.
Ownership kind, right?
They're pretty much all townhomes.
That's what I thought. And
Yeah.
so that's part of the reason that we're not meeting our RENA number.
Yeah.
Part of the reason is because we have been approving, the city council has been approving some townhomes. But those companies are refusing to build above 2 stories or 3 stories because they can't fund it, they say. They can't get loans and so it doesn't matter. We've got several that have been approved. But the housing is so low, the numbers of housing are so low that we are not meeting our RENA numbers. And so it's a big concern of the city right now. I know that last time we had our meeting, they were talking about the RENA itself and how they might modify going back to the state and saying, hey, give us time. We didn't know we're gonna have this problem with funding. Can we not extend, but make some changes and add some sites. So that's where we are right now. And so I've been wondering, like, it doesn't seem like it's awfully effective unless somebody finds something else somewhere. And so that's why I was so concerned, and I started going through and going, okay, what else can we change in this below market rate manual to be more effective?
Right.
And have the questions for the consultant. I'm not meaning that I know everything or anything, just they're all the questions I have, and I'm sure that other folks have some.
I still have questions on the study itself.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's good.
You know, proposals and
Sure.
thoughts. The same table that you had before, Nikki?
Sure.
So before this. There's the other table.
This one?
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
So the acutely low and extremely low. So we are not considering them at all.
Well, we currently just don't have a requirement for that.
So, okay, so, I mean, does that mean that, that doesn't mean that there aren't any acutely low or extremely low residents of Cupertino, correct?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that
It
there
doesn't mean-
aren't, so there are.
There are.
So, and then you're talking about this inclusionary housing requirement, so why aren't we explicitly producing extremely low income units through this inclusionary housing requirement?
It could be something that we ask our, our residents to look at and see, like, how can we make that feasible, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, so it could be, it doesn't have to be rental or even ownership
Yeah.
for the other two, it could be temporary housing. Transitional housing,
Yeah.
shelters, anything, right?
Yes.
So there's a possibility that we could kind of include, I don't know, still call it inclusionary, so it needs to for all population.
There are
That's-
some sources for that, yes. Yeah.
that was one of my comments. You also mentioned, sorry, one more, I have one more comment. You mentioned about the fee that's collected, right? And it's going towards, yeah, this one. Can we include, say, for example, like, helping somebody pay mortgage, down payment?
Like rental
Enough.
assistance.
Hmm?
Like a rental assistance.
Yeah, for rental you have, right, rental assistance, so for ownership, can we do that? Is that, so then you have more people.
Well, like mortgage down payment. Like a mortgage down payment.
Yeah, some help towards down payment, you know, I don't know, again, I'm not sure whether it's feasible. But it's a thought, why can't we think of that, so you increase more owners in Cupertino?
We previously did have a mortgage assistance program. I found some historical files for that.
Uh-huh,
I could explore and ask what happened to that program. You know, we had to get some.
there was, you think,
Yeah, no, I definitely found records of like an ancient, like mortgage assistance.
okay, yeah. And last comment, sorry.
That's okay.
You talked about the categories of the commercial linkage.
Yes. Commercial linkage fee?
Yeah, yeah, those, oh, yeah, okay. All we hear now is data centers for AI. You know, so don't we wanna think about, because this is for the future, now this is immediate, right? So in the next 10 years, say. Where we may have.
Yeah.
Data centers. So is that some like R&D kind of thing? What that would do?
Yeah.
Because these are going to be humongous developments, I'm not saying it's going to happen, there is a possibility it could.
But preparing for that, yeah.
So where's the land and then what it's going to do to housing? Increase in housing, decrease in housing, so I think that would be a nice thing for the consultant to look into. And the consultant, so back to, the percentages, can the consultant do like modeling based on different percentages
Yeah, so
and see what that would do?
it would ideally produce like basically like prototypes of like different modelings of different, yeah, exactly, different model. Like what kind of like developments would pencil out, right?
Yeah,
By different inclusionary requirements and with different fees, right? And at one point, do we start hitting breaking points where suddenly things are no longer feasible? So we can calculate where's that sweet spot between like where we can increase things without essentially hampering development.
yeah,
And so, yeah, we would be asking, that would be essentially what the consultant brings to the, to the
Right,
commission, a
right,
bunch of
right.
different prototypes to kind of, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because I had a thought about that AI as well, because I looked this up on Google when they said other categories. I'm thinking, and it was amazing. They said, well, are you trying to build a, a new Nexus report for your city? And I went, oh, well, not exactly. And so they had like 4 different categories. They said you have to modernize. You can't use square footage. And just to note, this business about level of wages was not in this chart. So it doesn't really explain how level of wages and square footage work together to come up with this particular thing, but that's a separate question. The thing was, it was talking about, use square footage. You use something like megawatts for electricity, how much electricity is used for whatever you're getting economically out of it. And then also water, because AI uses a lot of water as well. And so, it all starts blending together, making it crazy. I've looked at it for a while, but in our housing element, one of the things we're looking at in here is 3, I think, but 4 specifically talks about water and electricity usage for homes. Okay, if we're caring about that for homes, good and well, the city's gonna be caring about that, right? For all of our business. We have, as a matter of fact, a environmental handbook. And one of them talks about new companies coming in, building green buildings, using solar panels and things like that. So that's one aspect of it. And then there's landscaping, different land altogether. But those 2 things, specifically water and energy. So I have to admit, I went a slightly different way than you were talking about. I was thinking about an idea. Can the city just zone in such a way that you don't get proposals from AI? I mean, I know that we zone all kinds of things, right? We zone. So I don't know about that. It makes a lot of money, but it can destroy the environment you're living in. And I know that our city cares a lot about the environment. So it's just a question. Is there a way that the city can take action? Maybe not even wait till this whole thing plays out, but is there a way to,
I'm not
better zoning? So that we don't to get those kind of proposals at all, because they know they're not welcome
Yeah.
here.
I mean, right
This
now,
is
like-
a planning commission question now. I'm not sure how the
Yeah.
zoning interacts with this.
Yeah.
But to the question about, should we consider, a data center as a category, as a use category? That's definitely something we can ask, our consultants to look at and see like, how does that, the development of a data center affect, cost of housing in an area? And how does it particularly raise, cost of housing? And how do we accurately mitigate for that? So that's definitely something we can actually factor into that.
So I'd like to bring up then the other 3 that they said. They said AI data centers, you use per megawatt of power or peak GPM water flow. That's for AI data centers. And it said the outdated classification was warehouse. And that's when I went, warehouse, we've got $49 is the fee that we charge for warehouses. And that brings the question up, which at some point we need the answer to. What kind of warehouses do we have that we charge this kind of fee for? And how on earth is it even in the same thing as heavy industrial / warehouse? So that was the one, that AI data centers, that's worth grabbing my attention, this warehouse thing. But anyway, the other things are like professional office, outdated. Now what it is life science labs. Okay, that's per square foot with specialized HVAC and biosafety level, all this stuff of multipliers. Every time you get into an algorithm, right? Then there's last mile logistics, like say you were getting not REI, but Amazon. Say Amazon were to come to your town. And so that takes the place of regional distribution warehouse, because last mile logistics, trucking, use of river roads and all that stuff, per daily delivery van trip. what is your peak hour and where are all these trucks going and all that stuff. I mean, studies that, of course, the consultant would probably already thinking about. And the point was, and I didn't read everything, but this was in this particular one, micro hospitals. Don't know that we have such a thing, but they said that means you need to do per bed unit or peak hourly outpatient transaction count. And I don't even know what that has to
This
do
is
with
all
anything.
energy consumption, right?
Yeah.
For different- So,
It
so
does.
here's the thing, right? The
Yeah.
AI data, the data
Yeah.
centers is a new kind of,
Yeah,
a building type
right.
that is
It
being
is.
thrown out. I do know that there are some architectural firm, I mean,
Right.
taking my professional thing.
Right,
I
right.
know like firms, because the energy consumption is just ridiculous amount that is required.
Right.
So I do know that the firms that are designing AI data centers
Mhm.
are looking into how they can generate more power, right?
Right.
This is so
Right.
that the
So there,
existing power doesn't get depleted. So I do know that there's
so
a
there's.
lot of technology being developed for that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know that the profession is
Yeah.
gearing up to
Yeah.
deal with these big monstrosity of buildings that's going to
Absolutely.
come up.
Yeah.
In terms of what the city can do, I do know like some, they have acquired lands in like Midwest, like, I don't know, like, you know, so where there's nothing there right now, right? But there are opposition to that because of what it's gonna do to the natural resources and so
Right,
forth.
right, right.
Yeah, it's a question for the city if they wanna take such an action before it comes into
Right, before it even gets-
Cupertino.
yeah.
It's just something that you wanna think about, yeah. Yeah.
Another thing that's I want to ask you, because you're talking about knowing a little bit more about it than I do. My understanding was that these AI buildings really don't have a lot of employees. Is that?
Yeah, it's just a data center. It's just
The lights out.
storage. It's all like storage.
But that's sort of my point. If they don't have many employees, and what we're using is square footage and salaries of the employees there. If they don't have many employees, I don't know how we're gonna algorithm much. Then anyway, that was my question. I just,
Well,
I don't
I don't-
understand how that factors
There could
into
be
how
some
we
employees.
currently,
There are
how we
lights out.
currently do.
There are lights out most of the time.
Yeah,
I mean, but then those employees work in different centers, so it's.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough question. It's a new
Yeah,
thing.
and square footage and usage, resource usage is probably a better way of.
And
Yes.
the number of
Then the
employees,
employees,
yeah, probably.
Well, and that would be something then we'd want to be considering, because that's what we right now are using is square footage and the wages of people. And if you only had one person there, no matter how much they earn, probably it wouldn't do much. I mean, it doesn't do much for how many houses you need, right? You got
Sure.
one person, and that's put, got one person, okay. They can live just about anywhere, but anyway, yeah.
That
So,
brings up a good important points, yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to, yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
If they can afford a data center in Cupertino, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I missed what you
I was
said.
thinking.
No, if they can afford to build a data center in Cupertino,
Mm.
Well, those companies can.
Oh, trust me, they can
Companies
afford.
can, you know.
the companies can, but then, are they willing to
Whether they
spend so much
want to.
money?
Well, that's true. They're building in San Jose, just for the record, right?
Yeah, true. but
They've got the mayor all gung ho.
But San Jose is
So-
way bigger than Cupertino.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, maybe we don't have that problem.
Okay,
So
so
it was just brought up because it
No,
was
but it's good to address it. It's good to address it and then.
just, I think they should at least be aware of it. And if they do a study and find out, yeah, no way in heck anybody would do that here. Well, that's good. Cross your fingers, it's fine. I would like to ask other questions, which is the whole below market rate manual. One of the things we said about our study session was to examine the book. And so I was examining more than just these two items. Like on page 19 of it, should the applicability and the payment rules be reviewed? Because there's all kinds of, that's on page 19. In there, it talks about what it's applicable to, the housing mitigation program, the non-residential. So I was just wondering, maybe these categories need to be Because if it's not been updated in a while, do we have other kind of buildings and things that we need to look at? But the payment one was even more interesting to me because I understood that it's talking about when you pay your fees. The first paragraph A says you pay them when you get your construction permit. Oh, but B is in the event that you're allowed to defer that, then you do it at first occupancy unless there's a negotiated development agreement. And then if it do something else, and then if it was C, all fees be deposited into the BMR fund. Well, that's, of course, that is. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting, like, does it matter? I mean, because that's something that our city cares about is when does the money come in?
Mhm.
Why don't we have more in our EMR, AHF fund? You remember all those questions,
Sure.
right? And I'm like, so this is like, oh, well, this would make it even more iffy. Like, well, that one is gonna give it to us on the date of construction permits. and That one's gonna give it to us on the date of first occupancy, and this one's gonna give it to us. Well, look on their development agreement on page 10. It tells you when they're gonna do it. So it's just getting more, needs a computer, of course. But anyway, so these kinds of things I'm thinking are perhaps impactful. You can't tell on the surface whether they're impactful, right? It has to do with the timing of when we get the money and when we want it for something else.
Mhm.
If we ever have it, can we ever use it for anything else? Because we don't know when it's gonna be landing in our pocketbook. So I just would like to have somebody look at that piece of it. And then I've got others, so I will defer to another question from somebody else at this time.
So if you go back to the previous slide where they said
Yeah.
20%, right? Another one with the table with this.
Sure. This.
Yeah,
This one.
this one, right? So is this, if 20%, all it's allocated for below market rate, if nobody buys it, what happens to those 20%?
Oh, well, good question. So. In the rare case, and I don't think this has actually ever happened in the history of Cupertino, but if there was ever a below market rate ownership unit that for some reason just could not be sold. What the developer, then they have like 6 months or something like that to market and sell it. If for even after then there's no bites, the developer is allowed to sell it at market rate with no restrictions. However, the city will get the proceeds of the sale in the difference of that market rate price and the assumed BMR price, meaning the developer would not see any windfall, right? So they would sell it to the market, they would sell it on the market and it would become an unrestricted unit, but the city would get the proceeds of that.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how we can make sure that people
Yeah.
make a good effort to market that unit the right way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there's an excess, right? I would think there is actually like, isn't there like a big wait list?
Yeah,
for
yeah, so we
BMR?
never
That's
had
it.
an issue of not finding a buyer. I think the only time when there's been like issues with actually like getting it sold is sometimes developers like to play this game where they say that our unit is so special.
Mm,
The windows are so nice and the lights are so pretty, so can we please increase the price more and more? And I have to tell them, you're selling it to people that are low income.
Yeah.
So you can keep doing this, but you still have to sell to those people eventually, and yeah, so. Yeah, kind of shooting
But
themselves
the,
in the foot.
yeah, the BMR application, I saw some, it closes like in October of every year.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
So, which means somebody who, a new, a resident who becomes, loses a job or their family situation changes.
Yeah.
Like say in November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have to wait almost the entire year.
Yeah.
To apply and get their thing processed. So is there a possibility for this to become like a year-round application process? And say maybe if people go through like a pre-qualification. Whenever they can, they want to,
Yeah.
and then get onto the list.
Yeah.
And then if somebody is not eligible, they can just remove themselves from the list.
Yeah.
But if some unit becomes available, so it's like on a rotating basis rather than
Yeah.
start like, instead of just one time application for a year, would it be like on a rolling
This
basis?
is a great question.
Yeah.
I actually recently wrote a council information memo. Basically on different structures of BMR programs and the pros and cons. I think that they'll be publishing it soon, so we can wait. When I get published to talk about it more if you want, but the gist of it is there's pros and cons to that system as well, right? So like on paper, yes, someone would be able to apply during a year-round system at any time. And potentially if they had a really high priority, let's say they're like, they already live in Cupertino, they already work in Cupertino, they're, very low income, and they're like a physician, and perhaps they could. The other thing to remember is with a waitlist that's open year-round, those become like thousands and thousands and thousands of people long, so that's not necessarily a guarantee that they'll quickly get in. Number one. And then the structural difference in a year-round system actually does kind of add administrative steps for applicants, right? So they'll apply once to qualify to get on, and then they've got to apply kind of a second time to each individual property as a unit comes available, as opposed to having one single waitlist that we can maintain for a year. It's really depending on like policy wise, which one you prefer to do. The 1 month one, it has a built-in refresh, so we don't have to do any purging, and generally speaking, people who are low income apply to be on it anyways, regardless if there's been a change in their income. But there's pros and cons to both. Actually, we should probably table this discussion after the info memo comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or instead of a year-round one, you could have like 3
Maybe even
windows,
a shorter
4
cycle.
windows, which they
Yeah,
could
maybe
have.
every quarter or something,
something.
something, it's so that it's more readily accessible
Yeah.
to people who are qualified.
Actually, so there's different ways to do it. So there's like year round, where it's just always open, and then there's one where it's like semi-annual, like I think San Mateo does that. It's like every 3 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we do once a year. Some places do as needed, where they only do it whenever the list is completely run out.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to each one of them, to be honest. Yeah.
You know, you mentioned the San Mateo,
Yeah.
they have the lowest homelessness rates, right? So there is this article in here that like reference that, so, if there are tried and true systems that promote less homelessness and unhoused setup, then are there ways that we can look at what they're doing that we may be able to emulate instead of having to feel like we have to reinvent the wheel?
We can. That's kind of what the study is doing. They're looking at best practices of other cities to see which ones see the most success, right, in developing more affordable housing. And then they're trying to align that with the market, but also with our kind of state housing, goals to see where's like that middle sweet spot, right? But still friendly to developers, but friendly to the city, right, for our goals. Yeah. And part of that is looking at, other cities and seeing what works.
This is a great article, I'll pass it on.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I came across this term, fee out option.
Yes.
In the thing, what is it? I mean, you didn't mention that in your presentation.
Yeah, this kind of goes to alignment with state law. So a new state law that was passed is that cities need to have an option for if a developer wants to entirely fee out, meaning not
Oh.
provide any market rate units, and instead just pay a really big fee instead, right? To our market rate fund. And we currently don't really have a separate calculation for that because this is a new state law, why would we, right? And so part of this update will be creating a fee out option because we are legally required to have one.
So this is mandated by the state?
Yeah, we are mandated by the state to have a fee out option.
Does that sound crazy to anyone besides me?
Yeah, I know, that's like,
If they fee out and they pay money, and they would all do that, well, many would. We don't have so much land that then they can just say, well,
Yeah.
build them here. I mean, what you're not supposed to do, you're supposed to be having them throughout your out town, but
So
they would
perhaps-
never build any.
So
We would
perhaps
not
for our
build any.
methodology, we might ask a consultant to also look at land value costs, right? If they do
Yeah.
decide to do a fee out and say, realistically,
Yeah.
what will we need to do to acquire, right? So that would be something we could ask our consultant to kind of factor in, right?
Fee out cost can be high, right? So that it doesn't discourages them.
it is, but then still, we talked about this last time when we had the Who was there? Somebody else was there, the legal, maybe it was a legal.
Oh, Luke,
Was it Luke
he's
was there?
he's our assistant director.
So
Yeah.
remember, we were talking about, the state is telling us we need to increase more housing, but they're also
Yeah.
giving them all these loopholes that the developers can
Right.
get out of.
Yeah.
So why are they doing this? This is again another way out for the developers, you know? So.
I haven't made peace with the state, but I heard someone say that, you know, like they're a loose collection of people that all have different priorities. And so if it seems like what they're doing isn't consistent, that's because it's not consistent, right? That's because, yeah.
And I have learned a lot about that in the recent past, that the laws don't always, merge
they
with
don't
each other,
get
and this
along.
one is exactly the opposite of that one. And that's how we keep running into problems with our housing element. And the Rise did that. They had SB 35, which is a different kind of law altogether, and they were going to make 50% of their houses were going to be below market rate. And then the law got changed so that then they could reduce it, and they reduced it, and they reduced it. Now, the nice thing about it is the ones they are gonna build, they say they're gonna build first. So therefore, all of that construction that's going on right now will be below market rate homes.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of market rate homes that are gonna be built instead. And so it's really, that's when I first understood completely how the laws don't really mesh too well with each other.
Yeah.
Like density rules don't really help
Yeah.
get density apartments. You get parking, or not parking, or whatever, but they can ask for all kinds of things,
Yeah.
not houses. So it's, yeah, thank you. It's really not yeah. It's not easy at all.
Yeah. The last time we also talked about how ADUs actually add to the number of housing, right?
Yes.
As affordable units,
Yes.
but that's another, it's a loophole. So
Yes.
this is something I'm hearing from contractors
Mhm.
who are building additions to home, extension of homes.
Mhm.
They're applying to the city. This is not how, I'm not talking about, this is not in Cupertino, by the way. So this is a different city, around the peninsula, that they are building homes with additions, making the homes larger, but they are getting it as a ADU permit,
Mhm.
which means they have a lot of leeway, like, the setbacks are less and all this stuff. So they're getting it approved as the ADU, but it's in fact not an ADU, it's just an addition to the existing home.
Yeah.
So this is happening. you know? I don't know, okay, so that I don't know.
I just know one.
I know about Cupertino.
The ones right across my house,
Mm.
they've been sold as 4 or 5 bedrooms with an ADU.
Yeah.
And then the ADU was part of the house and.
Yeah, so this
really
is like,
separate.
so maybe the planning department who is giving the permit for the, they need
Yeah.
to tighten up. These
Well-
things, I don't know, again,
The intersection of local and state law plays into account for this, right? I think
Yeah.
it's called SB. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I was a planner, but the gist of it was when I was a planner, they said every single family home by state law has to be able to do either an ADU detached or a JADU attached. Like
Yeah.
that is by right. And so, yes, there are some
Yeah.
developments that are going on where it's like a single family home. It's like a really, really big.
Yeah,
building, right?
I know.
And that's their JADU.
right.
That's so far by the state.
So, but then the city is saying, hey, I have an extra unit, when it is not actually an extra unit, right?
And then they might be using it, right? It's just like another living room.
Yeah, it's just,
Because another interesting thing about the ADUs is that even notwithstanding that particularly awful problem, is that even if they were all regular ADUs like they're supposed to be, they are counted for below market rate in the arena by a percentage. A percentage of them are considered below market rate and a percentage of them are considered market rate. When in fact, since none of them are actually income,
They're not income deed restricted.
they're not need
Yeah.
restricted, that means that anybody can rent them, not below market rate. So even though we get credit for them, and I guess I'm glad we get credit for something,
Yeah.
that we don't actually have below market rate
yeah.
homes. Because in New York, they pay for a closet and will willingly pay a whole bunch, and I'm sure we could do that here. And that's why that's a little bit disingenuous, I think, on the part of the arena people letting us do that. But that's beside the point. Don't want to get into that too far because there's so many other things. Like, when we talk about these big issues, I go, oh, well, maybe, but I do want to mention that within the below market rate manual itself,
Yeah.
where you're talking about design requirements. Oh,
Oh, well, so the.
wait a minute, I was
consultant-
gonna add something. I just wanted to wait for you to be done.
Yeah.
Okay, within the market rate manual, it talks about design requirements. And that I think might well go ahead and change them because developers aren't doing them anyway, and they're using density bonuses to get out of them. Things like unit sizes and how many bedrooms you have, and the size of the building itself, and
Yes,
then the shall be dispersed throughout the project.
Yeah.
Shall be dispersed throughout the project did not work for Westport. They have a lovely 48 room building, but it's standalone. All the townhomes are separate from that. I'm going to assume that happened at Rise because their stuff is going to be separate and they're building them first. That's not dispersed throughout the project. The time I really noticed it for the bed size of the bedrooms and the size of the units was with all these new townhomes that are being
Yeah.
reviewed. At some point you go, oh, those are really big, really big houses, those townhomes. Oh, but these are a little, they're still awfully big, but they're smaller. They're smaller than the, so all the townhomes that we've just now approved have different sizes for the median and moderate homes within, period.
Yeah.
They do, and so it's like, why do we have that in our, we might as well strike that out of our manual because partly you can't use it anyway, and because it's a little, I think it's even back in the day when maybe they didn't have all those density bonuses. It's disingenuous to think that you can build things that are exactly the same size and yet people are gonna pay less for them. And somehow the government is gonna subsidize the whole rest of it. It gets to defy your rational thinking about how people actually make their money when they're building things, or how cities, I mean, how much do cities actually want to backstop people? Anyway, so that point is just this one here, about the design requirements. And feeding into the, how much do people want to, how much does the city want to backstop? How will the city backstop the payment for BMR owners when fire insurance prices exceed a reasonable limit? Now, one answer that I received was, oh, the HOA takes care of that. I go, oh, yes, have you ever dealt with an HOA? They're just people, right? In a housing complex and all that. And now you've got this many that are regular and this many that are below market rate. And fire insurance rates, as we all know, keep going up every 6 months. Or every year, however often you do it. Anyway,
HOAs cover? I don't know if HOAs cover insurance.
it's, huh?
HOAs, definitely, they don't cover insurance, right?
I was told when I asked the question, so I can't, don't dig deep on that, because I don't know. My question
Yeah, I
is,
don't think
my
they do.
question is,
Yeah.
who pays for that fire insurance for below market rate homeowners when they start skyrocketing, which they are? And State Farm, for one, stopped even selling insurance. And then you have to go on the Fair Act, to get your insurance at all, if you live in any fire hazard kind of area. Just asking the question, fire insurance, otherwise known as homeowners insurance, which I think you usually have to get in order to get a mortgage. And there was a whole big write-up in here about, you're gonna consider this and this and this and this and this, and then you'll do this to it, and then you'll have the fair market rate mortgage for these folks. And I said, well, where is the home insurance in there? Because I had heard that the HOA would be negotiating that. That I only brought it up because that's what I was told, not by somebody, not Nikki. Somebody said that. So I just wanted to say that I think that's a huge issue. I think it's a huge issue for the city. I think it's a huge issue for our below market rate program. And that it has to be thought through and thought through more than me thinking about it. But I think it's one of the huge issues.
Are there areas in Cupertino that fall under the fire hazard area?
I'm sure, yeah,
Yes,
I'm sure.
There are.
there is.
Where? Oh, near the.
Everett Court,
Not,
Exactly, yeah.
not
Everett Court.
that area.
They have
Everett Court is a new, do you know where Everett Court is?
Yeah, the one on Little Vista.
Okay,
Right.
that falls within the new high fire hazard risk, and that was one, a lot of people are against that particular project. I think it got approved. That being said,
Got canceled.
pardon?
I think that one got canceled.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it's been canceled yet. I mean, maybe somebody knows more than I do. but it has
I
been
couldn't
approved.
comment on that one, to be honest. I'm not in the loop for Evelich or.
Yeah, and that's fine, because we don't need to know all the answers. So the thing is that we need to know.
Neighbors.
They were asking the question, I know that one is,
That area
and I
is-
know that there was city council after city council.
Yeah, I
after
thought it was
planning
approved
commission.
though.
It was.
I thought that was.
I thought it was
yeah.
approved too, but that doesn't mean there isn't, say, maybe a lawsuit going on or like that. Lots of stuff happens after things are approved. Sometimes they never actually get built
Yeah, anyway, but
because of other things that go on, so.
But the fire hazard area.
Yeah.
Will need an approval by the local fire department.
It was approved
Any
by the local.
development in a fire hazard area.
Absolutely,
right?
and it was. I mean,
So it's been approved, which
Yeah.
means the fire department has determined that.
Yeah.
In a time of fire, they
right,
can safely evacuate
true
all the
statement,
residents.
true statement. I'm not saying that there's a lawsuit against it. I'm saying,
I'm just,
saying that it could
Yeah.
be.
And I think that area, I remember like I think one of the points that the neighbors had raised was, oh, we can't exit, but all the streets go out. I don't, anyway. It's beyond our.
Yeah, I was gonna
Our
say,
scope, we should.
we don't need an answer. I just, yeah.
Yeah,
We
anyway,
wanna-
okay.
we should-
Maybe the questions, are there other cities in the fire zone? I would, yeah, I'm sure there are other
And
cities.
there's more, more that always
Okay.
have been in the fire zone.
Can we go to the public comment period?
Oh, yes, we can.
Looks like we have no speakers.
Okay. Okay. Can we, let,
I
Chair
just have, one,
choose to, have a question, she has a question?
yeah,
Yeah.
with the respect to the different tiers,
Mhm.
is it income adjusted? And are the BMR rates income adjusted?
Yes. You're talking about like rental rates that are charged? Or-
Yeah, right, like for the very low, it's a lower
Yes.
number versus the moderate.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
rental rates, there's a formula component, but the idea is, housing is affordable to you if you're not paying more than a third of your monthly income to your housing. So they would make that an income bracket, basically, based off the AMI, like, so 30 to 50%, for example, for very low income, that would constitute, just off the top of my head, I think like up to like $71,000 in Cupertino. So you would take that number, divide it by 12 to get monthly, and then divide that again by 3. And that's the maximum a very low income rental, for example, could charge to still be considered affordable to them. And they're all kind of broken down by that. And
Last comment I have, so the consultant, you said there is a RFP out,
yeah, currently,
so
currently still out.
currently, so do we know when we will have? So what is the scope of work determined for the consultant?
The scope of work is going to be, number one, looking at the inclusionary housing requirement.
Yeah.
Suggesting a bunch of different prototypes for maybe how we could update this to
Yeah.
maybe get more very low and low income housing, right? Or just, maybe develop more in general. And then also, they will be taking a look at our fee structure,
Hmm.
seeing if there is a better methodology to calculate our fees, to make sure that we are getting a commensurate amount of fee to mitigate
Yeah.
whatever economic.
Yeah.
Are they gonna answer the question of how effective has this particular manual been? Because I think it's important to know how effective is this one? And then find out what gears within it.
As
need
much
to
as
be
I'd
changed.
like to, right? we have to consider that we are in an ecosystem of a lot of different things, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so like. I don't know if I can point to exactly the manual and say like, and this is the point where we stopped having all the housing because of the manual. If I
Well,
could, if I could extrapolate on that year and say like, maybe
Good point.
that year was 2020.
Mhm.
I can think of something that stopped development that year, right? The
Oh,
COVID,
yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe that year was
Yeah.
2008. I can think of something that stopped development that year, right? So it's kind of difficult to pick a single year and say like,
Yeah.
and this is where the manual really started helping or really started hurting, because
Mhm.
we exist in a larger ecosystem of
That's a really good point. Thank you.
development,
I
right?
had not thought
Yeah.
about the fact that we live in the, this
Yeah.
manual lives in a bigger world.
Yeah,
Can I then ask a separate question that also I care about, which is on page 30, alternatives to the below market rate requirements. In the very last one, it says, provide a plan. One of the options under an alternative from the contractor, rather than any of the stuff we've got in our manual. They would suggest an alternative. And one of the alternatives that's in here is to provide a plan for completion of the off-site BMR development prior to approval of the market rate project. The affordable housing plan shall include but not be limited to the following items. Oh, maybe I shouldn't be reading it to you. I should just be trying to say what it is. What they're saying is that they are building their market rate stuff. And yeah, they're gonna give you your below market rate stuff, but that's gonna come over here
Yeah.
at a different time.
Off-site.
And
Offsite.
there, offsite. That this schedule can be done after they do their market rate. And to me, that's like, no. When they make that plan, like,
a contingency plan.
when they make their contingency plan, talking about when they're gonna do this, kind of like what the Rise is doing now, they are building their below market rate first. I think it should always be built first, because those
Mhm.
market rate people are simply not going to do it. And I only know that because it happens in real life, and it happens here in our city.
Yeah,
So,
we can discuss that one with the consultant and see, maybe they want to remove the ability to do a contingency plan. The one thing I'll caution is, I know this one is also a state mandated one, the ability to do offsite. And so we want to make sure we don't run afoul of state law
wow.
by saying we can't, right? Just, so I would say we can look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Offsite would be,
Because-
are we gonna define what an offsite is? Like, is it like within like a 1 mile radius, 5 mile radius?
That's part of the affordable housing plan they would submit.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They would say like, XYZ company owned 2 parcels in the city. And so, yes, our development
Yeah.
for our market rate housing will be located here, and we want to designate this other site for our affordable. And, the typical requirement would be to do the affordable first, and then also, I guess, contingency plan, if for some reason but we'll ask, we'll see what's legally defensible, we'll see what's legally defensible.
That's right. Yeah, you
Yeah.
did have that in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I understand
Yeah.
legally defensible.
yeah.
Do we have any other study sessions before the consultant comes on board, or?
This is the study session, but I'm also, my email's always open for any questions, and I can try to, tag one of our city attorney's office people, what's the way.
Can you, I mean, maybe you can't, but how do we factor in the level of wages in this, Schedule B? This says, for office and research, it's $35.48.
Yeah,
And all it says is that it says per square foot. It doesn't say anything about level of wages. So I don't know if there's an algorithm that exists by which that $35.48.
yeah.
Or how many people are hired at that higher rate?
It's not by how many people are hired, it's assumed that a larger facility will hire more people to staff it.
Yeah.
But the way they decide on like the amount, the way a wage impacts the demand on housing, that's kind of their market analysis that they provide, right, that the consultant does. So I don't have the math in front of me, but
Okay,
it is a formula for like, when you introduce new renters into the market, how much that shifts demand.
right, but shouldn't we even mention it then? That it's something that we factor
On
in?
the fee schedule,
Sure.
we try to keep the fee schedule kind of concise for the people who are paying them, because like that doesn't quite help like a developer calculate how much they need to pay us. That's
Oh,
kind
I
of,
see.
that's kind of left for the study.
What's a warehouse?
The warehouse,
Yeah, it's $49.29 is their fee that they pay to build a warehouse. Do you know what that is?
well,
In,
per square footage, right? So they would be paying like
no,
what,
but what is the warehouse?
Oh.
What would be a warehouse? If we looked around our city, what would be a warehouse? Would it be the public storage kind of thing?
A data center could be a warehouse.
a data center could be a
What
warehouse.
did you say?
A data center could be a warehouse.
No, yes, I'm talking about right this very minute, because this is already, see, this is in our old fashioned one, which is based on square footage as opposed to AI, which they should be doing, but anyway.
I don't think
So I'm just wondering if.
Currently in our, I think, Title 19. 19.030, something like that. There's a whole section called definitions that like where we define each and every single use case. I'm gonna go on her and guess, because we're Cupertino, we incorporated data warehouse as under the definition of warehouse.
Data warehouse.
And that's why we pulled out a separate definition, right, for self-storage, right? So that's a different.
Oh, I see. I
Yeah.
do see that. there.
Yeah, that's it.
the building
Yeah.
code defines.
Yeah.
Building code defines every type of building, what they are, what the occupancy category classification is for every building.
I was thinking of
This is,
just an example, like, if you just go down the corner and around the street, you'll find, but there you go. There's a
Mhm.
warehouse full of stuff, whatever it is. But you're thinking that this might be a data warehouse?
I think it might include data warehouse.
It could.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it.
Because we do have,
Which might explain the highest cost.
okay, well, this has been very illuminating.
Any questions? Commissioner Sripathi, Commissioner Jones?
I have one last question. So
Yes, absolutely.
when it comes to the developers, does this mandate, whether city, state governed, usually deter developers, or they see such a tremendous ROI on these projects that this is just a part of doing business?
Well, ideally, the whole idea behind doing this Nexus study is to make sure that we're not just throwing out a number that ends up becoming a government constraint for development, right? Because that's the idea with running these prototypes, so that we can make sure that the kind of housing that we want to see is still penciled out, so to speak. Yeah, so ideally, if we do it right, no, it shouldn't be. Yeah.
We move on to the next agenda item?
Wait a minute,
No?
that was her last question.
Okay, sorry.
I don't recall.
I thought you were.
Questions yet. No, I.
Okay, so yeah,
I can close, but at the same time, I spend a lot of time coming up with these questions. Our goals right now, under HE 2.3.3 that you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
That's 200 below market rate units over 8 years.
Yeah,
Okay, and this one, the next one, 2.3.9, facilitate the development of 500 units,
yeah.
in that time period, I assume. Anyway, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot, and so I guess your question does come into play, which is, does this suppress people coming in and saying they want to build here, or?
No.
uh,
So for context, that's from the housing element.
Yes, it is.
And we created quantifiable objectives for each of our strategies as a way to like kind of set a baseline
Yes,
for like what we would consider like successful implementation of any of these strategies, right?
right.
So like theoretically, this is just an example. Of course, we would never do this, but let's say we were to recommend a very, very minimal change to the program, to the point where essentially nothing's different and there are no additional low income housing, right?
Mhm.
Well, we would fail our own metrics, right, that we set in the housing element.
Right,
And
right.
so that would be acceptable recommendation,
right.
right? Yeah. That's just to hold ourselves accountable, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Okay. I guess I will say, let me just read this page. That would be going. Okay, thank you. I am
Anyone?
finished. Thank you, I have no more questions.
Okay.
If you guys are finished, you can motion, I guess, to close discussion.
Okay. Have a motion to close the
Oh,
discussion.
you don't need a motion?
No?
Just kidding, no motion.
Okay, no motion for it, okay. Next agenda item, staff and commission reports. I had one update. We had a mayor meeting on July 15th. We were supposed to go over all the updates from the previous, all the commission meetings, but then it was decided to do just, the Crest Award nomination. And, yeah, so there were a lot of, nominations.
Yeah.
So we went over all the nominees and their accomplishments, and we all voted. Very excited, and we'll all be sometime in October, I guess.
In October is when,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's,
Yeah.
very exciting, so.
that was a fun one. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
attending last year. It's
So the
really
whole
exciting
meeting
to
was
see
just,
so many volunteers
yeah.
and everything.
We're
they
very,
did.
very
It's
impressed.
Very inspiring.
It is.
I know, it is, and then it's more inspiring, it's like young kids, you know, it's like, it's just amazing.
If you guys can, I recommend you may come out there, right? That dinner is basically thanking you all for your service. So it's for you guys, right?
It's for us, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in
The-
October.
The commissioners dinner, yeah,
Yeah.
that's when they give out this too, yeah,
Yeah, it's supposed to be in
And
October.
the appreciation.
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
We'll try to make sure Commissioner Jindy gets a certificate.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
oh, just, yeah, you both know, right? Commissioner Cindy is, resigning, yeah.
Oh,
She's
Is it what you
moving
said?
out of,
Dr.
What do you
Zinn,
Cupertino, yeah.
Commissioner Zindi is resigning, yeah.
Commissioner Gingy is resigning.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
why
I
she's
couldn't
not
hear-
here.
I couldn't hear
Sorry,
anything you said. So that
And I
you
saw
were
the
telling
email
him
was
no.
copied to
To us,
so,
but not to
yeah,
them.
not-
Oh, that's
why
right.
I'm just, letting,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, she's moving out of,
How do we nominate a new commissioner?
You can.
Oh,
a new commissioner,
so yeah, the recruitment, we've let the clerk's office know, and they'll be starting the recruitments once they've got the go ahead, I think, from city leadership.
Yeah.
Did I get that right, Lindsay?
Sorry, one more time?
We let them know that there's a vacancy right now in the housing commission, and the recruitment will start pretty much once they get the go ahead from city leadership.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
So hopefully, could we have one by September then?
I mean, I hope so, we'll see.
I mean,
We'll see. They have to get, they actually have to get vetted and confirmed by city council, and I think city
That's
council
pretty
is currently on vacation.
yeah, that's
So-
right, until September 1st. Oh, that's
So
right.
maybe, like,
Okay.
we'll see, yeah.
But the four of us can do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Fine.
Good.
You guys got
I'm
this.
gonna miss it.
Yeah.
I just wanna talk about this one,
Yeah.
article.
Yeah.
So, it was in the Cupertino Courier on July 10th, and this is what I was referring to earlier with respect to Santa Clara, San Mateo rather, and Contra Costa having like the lower homeless rates compared to, like the city like Oakland, right? So it's like the at opposite ends of the spectrum. And really, this particular, one doesn't necessarily relate back to Cupertino specifically, but just talks about how the city draws more homelessness for various reasons. You know, more access to public transport and resources and things like that, mobility. There's also more encampments, but you know, what really stood out to me from this article is really the San Mateo example, which is they have more coordinated effort to prevent people from becoming
Yeah.
homeless in the first place.
Yeah.
And they allude to the county center for Center on Homelessness, which really consolidates all of these efforts that we here talk about, but I'm actually not familiar enough to know whether we have something like that, which is, you know, that center on homelessness.
Kind of, yes.
Yeah, remember, we attended that whole, thing, Santa Clara County, they have
Yeah.
a whole,
Center.
section.
Yeah, it's called
For,
CFC.
yeah, addressing the.
Care continue.
Yeah, they continue.
Continuum of care, yeah,
Yeah.
there is, yeah.
Because, you know, like,
It's not successful.
Yeah.
there.
right, yeah, because they talk about like one centralized unit or governing body that does lower utility rate plan, getting connected with the right legal services, health services, and, you know, rental assistance, all of that. So I wonder if we can maybe make our resources more accessible somehow. And maybe it already is, I just don't know. if it
Definitely.
is.
When it comes to like homelessness, definitely like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
Like something about like the retention rate for like a homeless prevention program. It's so much better, right? Than it is when you bring someone back from the streets who's been out there for years. And definitely when we were talking about anti-displacement,
Mhm.
something that was like in the subtext of that is it's also homeless prevention, right? When you prevent someone from being displaced, you're also preventing them from becoming homeless. The good news is, we tried putting that on the city work plan, and then we were also making capacity for those kinds of programs in our own funding program.
Yeah.
So to be seen, it may be coming back. And yeah, we may have things to report on that. Yeah,
Am I able to just share?
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
This cut part of the article, but at least it can,
Yeah.
give a little glimpse. Oh,
Of course.
and we can maybe like Google the article for the bottom part that cut out.
Sure, yeah.
Because I think.
Yeah, I think the city of Cupertino has all these programs, right? Like, I mean, we hear from all the people who come in West Valley and
Yeah.
for the legal. It's the question I've always had is how many people know about it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I personally don't know. I know about these things because I'm here and I'm hearing about them. So that is my question. I don't know the answer to it. So if the city could do more outreach, again, maybe make it, like, again, hearing about all these kids, high school kids doing all this amazing thing, right? Put it out to the high school students, hey, we want you guys to do outreach for the city, this is one of the opportunities you can have, go and spread the news, to go to the senior center or knock on doors, I don't know,
Yeah.
some form of outreach. Just so people know that this is available.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's available. So that's
I
one.
think even highlighting it in our local newspaper, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Some folks actually pick it up and read it.
See, but you're reading.
Yeah.
Read.
Which paper is this?
Cupertino Courier.
Yeah.
Cupertino Courier, okay, because
Yeah,
there,
this-
there was also an Outlook, oh, yes, okay, an Outlook magazine
Yeah.
that comes monthly or something. But I wanted to also, say that that's why we're gonna miss Lita, she had a great lot of input, on below market rate.
Yeah.
Because she was living the below market rate, so she understood how that works. And one of the things she mentioned, Nikki, was that, meeting somewhere, and it was a group that came together to talk about these kind of issues. And I don't now remember anything about it, I'm sorry to say, but I don't know if you do, because we, the city, apparently are part of making that happen. Which is a form of outreach to various people who might need that.
Mhm.
So yes, thank you for bringing it up, but it is useful to find out that not that many people, except those who are working, may necessarily know,
Definitely.
because it doesn't affect them. If it doesn't
Yeah.
affect you, sometimes you read it and then it's gone and you're more back into what's affecting your life, whatever it is. I mean, there's lots of things going on in anybody's life.
So we want to avoid discussing this too much because we're starting to run up against a Brown Act issue because this item is not agendized.
Oh, okay,
Okay, yeah.
okay,
Makes sense.
that's a good point.
All right, can we adjourn the meeting?
No.
The setting.
Oh, okay, should we do a future agenda setting?
Oh,
Maybe this is one of the topics we could set.
Sure.
As a future agenda?
Talking about outreach events.
Outreach of city services for,
Sure.
people who need them, low income, extremely low income people.
Yes, we can have that at a future. agenda.
Add that to the agenda, okay. Do we need to have a motion for that or?
Nope, no motion needed.
Okay. For adjournment, do we need a motion or? No, okay, can we close the meeting?
All right.
Time's at 7:01. Meeting closed.